Have you ever felt so utterly alone in a crowded room that you could physically feel the space you occupied shrinking? Like the universe was trying to squeeze you out of existence? If you've ever felt invisible right when you needed to be seen the most, smash that like button and subscribe, because you are not alone. And this story is for you. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had a night that started as the worst of your life and turned into something you never expected. The worst part wasn't the fucking empty chair sitting next to her at her best friend's wedding. It wasn't the symphony of pitying glances from distant relatives, or the way conversations would stutter and die the moment she approached a group, as if her loneliness were a contagious disease. No. The worst part, the part that felt like swallowing shards of glass, was watching Sophia, her sworn sister since their dorm room days, radiating joy and laughing with people who had treated Chloe Davis like a piece of furniture all evening. Chloe smoothed the silk of her deep sapphire dress for what felt like the 1,000th time, trying to will herself into invisibility at the aptly named Table 13. The grand ballroom of the Chicago Drake Hotel was alive, a humming hive of champagne toasts and jubilant laughter, but for Chloe, it was all happening on the other side of a soundproof wall. Every couple in the room seemed to be wrapped in their own personal spotlight of bliss, while she sat next to a void that was supposed to have been filled by her date. "So sorry, Chloe," her colleague Ben had texted that morning, his words a pathetic excuse for a gut punch. "Stomach flu. Absolutely brutal. Can't make it. You understand, right?" Oh, she understood perfectly. Ben had found out last week that Sophia's wedding to Mark Brewer, the heir to a hotel empire, was being featured in Chicago Society magazine. Suddenly, being Chloe's +1 to what he'd assumed would be a normal wedding wasn't quite as appealing as the possibility of being photographed with the city's elite. He hadn't bailed because he was sick. He'd bailed because he wasn't important enough to be included in the main party, and sitting with the B-list wasn't worth his Saturday night. The maid of honor, Sophia's older sister Olivia, tapped her crystal champagne flute with a manicured nail, the ringing sound slicing through the chatter. Chloe had known Olivia for a decade, and in that entire time, the woman had never looked at her with anything other than thinly veiled disdain. Tonight, Olivia's smile was a predatory slash of red lipstick. "I'd like to say a few words about love," Olivia announced, her voice dripping with saccharine condescension that carried across the opulent hall. "They say true love finds everyone eventually. Well, almost everyone." Her gaze, sharp and precise as a laser, found Chloe at her lonely outpost. "Some people, you see, aren't meant to be the stars of their own love stories. They're meant to be the loyal, supporting characters, the ones who hold the purse, who fix the dress, who are always there to listen, essential in their own way, but never the ones standing in the spotlight." A wave of laughter rippled through the crowd. It wasn't overtly cruel, but the light, thoughtless kind of chuckling from people who thought they were witnessing a clever, harmless roast. But to Chloe, it felt like a public execution. Her cheeks burned with a firestorm of humiliation as heads turned, their eyes drawn to her, the solitary figure at a table set for two. From the head table, Sophia caught her eye. She gave a tiny, helpless shrug and a small wave. But she didn't intervene. She didn't defend her. She didn't silence her sister. She just turned back to her new, handsome, wealthy husband and smiled. That silence, that inaction, hurt more than Olivia's venomous words. It was the ultimate betrayal. Chloe had been the one to hold Sophia's hair back after her first college kegger. She had been the one to drive Sophia to her mother's funeral when she was too grief-stricken to see the road. She had coached her through every single law school interview, calmed her nerves before the bar exam, and helped her pack up the apartment after a devastating breakup with the man Sophia had thought she would marry. When Sophia needed someone, Chloe was there, No questions asked. But now Sophia was Mrs. Mark Brewer, surrounded by a new family and a new social stratosphere, and apparently a decade of loyalty had an expiration date. The band began to play a slow, soulful ballad, and the dance floor filled with a sea of swaying couples. Chloe watched Sophia dance with her father, tears of joy streaming down both their faces. She remembered the day they'd found that dress, after visiting 15 different bridal boutiques. She remembered Sophia's panicked 2 a.m. calls about floral arrangements and seating charts. "You'll be my maid of honor, obviously," Sophia had said just a year ago, squeezing her hand in a cafe. But 6 months later, a sheepish phone call came. Olivia had insisted. "Family has to come first, you know how it is." Chloe had understood. She always understood. A waiter materialized at her elbow, placing a fresh flute of champagne on the table. "From the gentleman at the bar," he murmured, nodding discreetly across the room. Chloe followed his gesture and saw him. He was tall, dressed in a bespoke dark suit that probably cost more than her car. He had deep brown hair, eyes that seemed kind even from a distance, and a relaxed, confident posture that spoke of quiet power, not arrogance. He lifted his own glass in a silent toast to her. A tiny, foolish flutter of hope sparked in her chest before she ruthlessly extinguished it. Men who looked like that, who radiated that kind of effortless success, didn't notice women like her, especially not on a night when she felt like a ghost at the feast. It had to be a mistake, a prank, or he was looking at the table behind her. But then he started walking. He moved through the throng with an unhurried grace, nodding to people who tried to catch his attention, his focus remaining locked on her. Chloe's heart started a frantic, panicked drumbeat against her ribs. This couldn't be happening. "Excuse me," he said as he reached her table. His voice was warm, a low baritone that was even better up close. "I hope you don't mind. You looked like you could use a reinforcement." His smile was genuine, and it crinkled the corners of his eyes. There was an empathy in his expression that she hadn't seen all night. "I'm Liam," he said, extending a hand. "Liam Sterling." "Chloe Davis," she replied, her voice a little shaky as she shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and reassuring. "Would it be terribly forward of me to ask if this seat is taken?" Chloe gestured to the empty chair, a symbol of her humiliation just moments before. "It's all yours. My date came down with a sudden and very convenient case of food poisoning." Liam sat, his presence instantly changing the atmosphere of the table. It no longer felt empty. "It's a beautiful wedding," he said, his gaze sweeping the room. "Are you a friend of the bride or groom?" "The bride," Chloe said, the words tasting like ash. "We were best friends." She corrected herself. "We are best friends." "Lifelong friendships are a rare and precious thing," he said, his eyes returning to hers, and she had the distinct feeling that he knew she was lying. The music shifted to a faster tempo, and the dance floor erupted with energy. Chloe watched Sophia spinning in Mark's arms, a perfect bride in a perfect world. "Can I ask you something, Chloe?" Liam said, leaning in slightly so she could hear him over the music. She nodded. "Would you be willing to do me a favor?" His expression turned serious. "I promise you it's nothing dangerous or inappropriate." She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a flicker of something desperate beneath the polished exterior. This wasn't a line. He genuinely needed something. "What kind of favor?" Liam glanced around the room, a subtle check of his surroundings, before his eyes met hers again. "I need you to act like you're mine tonight." Chloe stared at him, convinced the pulsing bass of the music had made her mishear. I'm sorry, what? I know it sounds insane, Liam said, his voice low and urgent. But I need you to pretend to be my date, just for the next few hours. She looked around the ballroom, searching for hidden cameras, for any sign that this was an elaborate, cruel joke. Why on earth would a man like you need me to do that? Liam raked a hand through his hair, the first sign of nervousness she'd seen from him. My ex-girlfriend is here. It's been 6 months since we broke up, but she's relentless. I saw her across the room a while ago, and she was heading my way with that look in her eyes. What look? The one that says she's already redecorated my apartment in her head and picked out our kids' names. He gestured with a subtle nod toward a table near the head table. The woman in the blood-red dress, talking to the groom's mother. Chloe's gaze followed his. The woman was a supermodel cliché, impossibly tall, with cascading blonde hair, a dress that clung to every curve, and a circle of admirers hanging on her every word. She was everything Chloe wasn't, bold, polished, and oozing with a predatory confidence. She's stunning. She's also manipulative, materialistic, and believes my bank account is community property, Liam said, turning back to Chloe. I'm here because Mark is a friend and an important business partner. I had no idea she'd be on the guest list. He leaned in a little closer, his voice dropping. So, will you be my girlfriend? Just for tonight. I promise I'll make it worth your while, and you'll be saving me from a scene of epic proportions. Chloe looked down at her simple sapphire dress, then back at the goddess in red. The idea was laughable. I don't think for a second anyone would believe that you and I are together. Why not? Look at her, Chloe said flatly. Then look at me. We're not playing in the same league. We're not even playing the same sport. Liam's expression hardened, all traces of humor gone. First of all, you are incredibly beautiful. That dress looks like it was made for you. Second, you have something she could never possess. What's that? She asked, skeptical. Authenticity, he said, his gaze unwavering. I can see it in your eyes. There's a kindness there, a realness. She's a performance. I'm tired of performances. The raw sincerity in his voice made her chest ache. When was the last time someone had called her beautiful and sounded like they actually meant it? What exactly would this performance involve? She asked, her curiosity overriding her self-doubt. Nothing you're uncomfortable with. We'd sit together, we'd talk. Maybe we dance once or twice. I'll introduce you to people as my girlfriend. We just need to look happy. Convincingly happy. And what's in it for me? Liam's smile returned, warm and conspiratorial. Aside from the eternal gratitude of a man in desperate need of a shield, I'll make sure that for the rest of this evening, you have the best damn time you've had in a year. You looked like you needed rescuing just as much as I did. The observation stung, but it was the unvarnished truth. She had been drowning in her own misery, a pathetic wallflower at her best friend's biggest moment. Plus, Liam continued, his voice dropping again, I'll owe you a favor, a big one, and I'm a man who always pays his debts. The way he said it implied he was talking about more than just money. There was a power in him, a capability that was both intimidating and incredibly compelling. Something about this stranger made her want to trust him, to take the insane leap he was offering. What happens when people ask questions? I don't know the first thing about you. We'll keep it simple. We met through a mutual acquaintance at a charity event a few months ago. We're taking things slow, enjoying getting to know each other. He pulled out his phone, quickly tapping the screen. What do you do for a living? I'm a marketing strategist. Or I was, until my department was downsized last month. Budget cuts, he said, nodding. Brutal. Tell me about it. I've been freelancing, but the market's tight. Liam's expression grew thoughtful. Marketing, that's actually perfect. For what? I'll tell you later. Right now, my past is marching this way with the determination of a heat-seeking missile. Chloe glanced over. The woman in red was indeed heading toward their table, her smile a predatory baring of teeth. So, Liam asked, his eyes pleading, Chloe Davis, will you save me? Chloe thought about the alternative, sitting alone for the rest of the night, enduring more of Olivia's barbs and Sophia's neglect. She thought about going home to her silent apartment and staring at the ceiling, wondering where her life had gone so wrong. Then she looked at Liam Sterling, a handsome stranger offering her a temporary escape, a chance to feel chosen, even if it was all a lie. Yes, she said, a small smile touching her own lips. I'll help you. Relief washed over Liam's face, so profound it was almost comical. Thank you. I already owe you more than you know. He reached across the table and took her hand, just as the blonde bombshell arrived. His hand was warm and strong around hers. Liam, darling, the woman purred, her voice like honey laced with arsenic. I was hoping I'd see you here. I tried to call. Hello, Isabella, Liam said, his tone cool but polite. He didn't let go of Chloe's hand. I'd like you to meet my girlfriend, Chloe. Isabella's perfect smile faltered for a microsecond before it was plastered back in place. Girlfriend? She repeated, the word dripping with disbelief. Her eyes did a quick, dismissive scan of Chloe, from her simple hairstyle down to her sensible heels, cataloging every perceived flaw. The silence was thick with unspoken judgment. It's a pleasure to meet you, Chloe said, amazed at how steady her voice sounded. Yes, well, Isabella said, her attention snapping back to Liam as if Chloe had ceased to exist. Darling, I was hoping we could have a word in private, about the Atherton deal. There's nothing to discuss, Isabella. That deal closed ages ago, and you were not a part of it. Still, I think... Isabella, Liam's voice held a note of finality. I am here with Chloe. My focus for the evening is on her. Isabella's smile turned razor sharp. Of course. How sweet. How long have you two been... an item? Panic flared in Chloe's throat, but Liam gave her hand a gentle, reassuring squeeze. A few months, he said, his voice smooth as silk. The best few months I've had in a very long time. The way he said it, looking directly into Chloe's eyes with a warmth that felt shockingly real, almost made her believe it herself. How romantic, Isabella cooed. And where did you two lovebirds meet? Through work, Chloe chimed in, finding her footing. Liam was looking for someone with experience in brand strategy. Oh, so you work for him? The condescension in Isabella's tone was a slap in the face. It lit a fire in Chloe's belly. I work with him, she corrected, her spine straightening. We're partners on a new venture. It was a lie, but it felt good. Liam's approving pressure on her hand told her it was the right thing to say. Partners, Isabella repeated, savoring the word as if it were a foul taste. How very modern. Just then, the band shifted into a slow, classic Sinatra tune. Liam stood, pulling Chloe gently to her feet. If you'll excuse us, he said to Isabella, his eyes on Chloe. Would you care to dance? Chloe nodded, immensely grateful for the escape. As Liam led her onto the dance floor, she heard Isabella mutter something under her breath that sounded suspiciously like, "This isn't over." You were brilliant, Liam whispered in her ear as he pulled her into a classic dance frame. She despises me. Excellent. That means it's working perfectly. Chloe looked up at him as they swayed to the music, the lights of the ballroom blurring around them. What in God's name did I just get myself into? Liam smiled down at her, and for one heart-stopping moment, she completely forgot this was all an act. "Something, Chloe Davis," he murmured, his voice a low vibration against her ear. "That might just be the best thing that ever happened to either of us. Have you ever had to pretend to be someone you're not? Did it feel liberating or terrifying? Tell me your story in the comments. And if you're enjoying Chloe's unexpected journey, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. You won't want to miss what happens next." Dancing with Liam Sterling was like stepping into an alternate reality. He moved with an easy, confident grace, guiding her through the steps as if they'd been dancing together for years. Chloe could feel the curious stares of other guests, but for the first time all night, the attention didn't make her want to crawl out of her own skin. Wrapped in his arms, she felt protected. "You're a phenomenal dancer," she said, surprised by her own lack of awkwardness. "My grandmother was a ballroom champion. She insisted on lessons when I was 13. I thought it was the height of torture back then, but I'm eternally grateful now." "It shows," Chloe replied. He spun her out gently, his hand firm at her back, and when she twirled back into his arms, his smile was unguarded and genuine. "You're not at all what I expected when I walked over to your table," he admitted. "What did you expect?" "Someone who needed saving," he said honestly. "But I'm beginning to think you're saving me just as much." The song ended, but Liam kept her hand in his as they walked back to their table. Isabella had thankfully vanished, but Chloe noticed Sophia watching them from across the room, her expression a mixture of confusion and suspicion. "Chloe?" Sophia's voice cut through the air as she approached them, her couture wedding gown rustling around her. "What's going on?" "Sophia, hi," Chloe said, her nerves jumping. "Congratulations again. The ceremony was breathtaking." "Thanks." Sophia's eyes darted from Chloe to Liam, then down to their still joined hands. "I don't believe we've met." "Liam Sterling," he said, extending his free hand with a charming smile. "A pleasure. Congratulations on your marriage." "Thank you," Sophia said, shaking his hand, but her gaze remained fixed on Chloe. "Chloe, I thought your +1 was Ben." "He came down with food poisoning," Chloe said, the lie coming more easily this time. "Liam was able to join me instead." "Instead?" Sophia's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. "We're dating," Liam interjected smoothly, stepping a little closer to Chloe and placing a proprietary hand on the small of her back. The gesture felt shockingly natural. "I know Chloe was so excited to finally introduce me to her best friend." Sophia's expression shifted into something unreadable. Surprise, tinged with what looked like concern? "That's wonderful," she said slowly, drawing out the word. "How long has this been going on?" "A few months," Chloe said, sticking to the script. "And you never mentioned him?" The accusation was clear. Chloe felt a flush creep up her neck. Sophia was right to be suspicious. They'd spoken on the phone just last week, and Chloe had lamented her single status. "We wanted to keep things quiet at first," Liam said, his voice a low, intimate murmur meant for both of them. "You know how it is with a new relationship. Sometimes it's best to just enjoy it for yourselves before you let the whole world in." "Of course," Sophia said, though her tone was laced with disbelief. "Well, I should get back to Mark. But we absolutely have to catch up soon, Chloe. I want to hear everything." "Definitely," Chloe agreed, knowing it was an empty promise. As Sophia walked away, Chloe let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. She knows something's not right. She's suspicious because you look like you're being interrogated, Liam said gently. If we're going to sell this, you need to relax. Try to act like you're actually happy to be here with me. "I am happy to be here with you," Chloe said, then blushed, realizing how that sounded. I mean, I'm grateful for the assist. But are you happy? The question was simple, but it struck a deep chord. When was the last time she'd felt genuinely, truly happy? Not just content or fine, but actually joyful. I'm having a much better night than I was 2 hours ago, she admitted honestly. Good. That's a start. A waiter appeared with a new bottle of champagne, and Liam handled the transaction with an easy generosity. As they sat back down, Chloe was struck by how different the entire room felt. The empty chair was no longer a symbol of her loneliness. It was occupied by the most intriguing man she'd ever met. The pitying stares had morphed into glances of curiosity and even envy. Tell me about the real Chloe Davis, Liam said, his voice serious now. If I'm going to be a convincing boyfriend, I should know more about you than your former profession. What do you want to know? Everything. Where'd you grow up? What are you passionate about? What makes you laugh until you cry? Chloe took a sip of her champagne, the bubbles fizzing on her tongue. It had been ages since anyone had asked her questions like that, questions that weren't about her job or her rent. I grew up in a small town outside of Madison. My parents are retired librarians. I have one older brother who's a doctor in Seattle. Are you close? Very. They worry about me being alone in a big city like Chicago, but they're my biggest cheerleaders. And friends? Aside from Sophia? Chloe hesitated. I'm not the best at making new friends. Sophia and I were inseparable in college, and it was just easy. Most of my other friendships kind of faded after people got married and had kids. That's not uncommon, he said kindly. Life gets in the way. What about you? Tell me your story. Liam's easy smile faded slightly. I grew up here in Chicago. My father built a real estate empire from the ground up. I started my first company, a small tech firm, right out of college. Let me guess, it was wildly successful. He chuckled. It was a spectacular failure. Taught me more than any MBA program could have. My second company did a little better. We developed logistics software for global shipping companies. That sounds complex. It is, and it's lucrative, which comes with its own set of problems. There was a weariness in his tone that suggested the money was as much a burden as a blessing. Is that how you knew Isabella? She was the VP of marketing at a company we were trying to acquire. We dated for almost 2 years. He paused, swirling the champagne in his glass. I thought I was in love. Looking back, I think I was just profoundly lonely, and she was a beautiful distraction. What happened? I realized she never asked me the kinds of questions I just asked you. She knew my portfolio, my travel schedule, and my favorite restaurants for closing a deal, but she didn't know that on Sunday mornings, when I'm not working, I go to a little diner in my neighborhood, order blueberry pancakes, and read old spy novels for 3 hours. Spy novels? Chloe smiled. Who's your favorite author? John le Carré. You? Agatha Christie. I'm a classicist. Nothing wrong with the classics. They talked for another hour, the rest of the wedding fading into a muted background hum. They discovered a shared love for hiking in the fall, a mutual hatred for reality television, and a complicated relationship with their ambitious families. It was the easiest, most engaging conversation Chloe had had with a stranger in her entire life. I haven't talked to someone this long without mentioning work in years, Liam admitted. Same here. Most people I meet just want to network. Is that why you're wary of your wealth? Chloe asked gently. Liam looked surprised. How did you know? The way you said it was lucrative. Like it was a diagnosis, not a celebration. You're dangerously observant. It's a survival skill. When you're used to being overlooked, you learn to pay attention to the details. Well, he said, his voice soft, his gaze intense. I don't think you're someone who should ever be overlooked." The sincerity in his voice made her heart perform a little flip. Even if this was all a game, a temporary alliance, Liam had a way of making her feel seen in a way no one else had in years. The bandleader announced the final dance of the evening, a slow, romantic melody that drew the remaining couples to the floor. "Shall we?" Liam asked, standing and offering his hand. "We should probably make one final convincing appearance for the cheap seats." Chloe took his hand and let him lead her back onto the dance floor. As he pulled her close, she found herself forgetting, once again, that this was all pretend. She rested her head on his shoulder, breathing in the subtle, clean scent of his cologne, feeling the warmth of his hand on her back. When she looked up at him, he was already watching her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper. "For tonight. For helping me. Thank you for asking. Can I ask you something else?" "What?" "Would you be willing to have dinner with me tomorrow night? No pretense, no ex-girlfriends, just as two people who seem to have a lot to talk about." Chloe's breath hitched. This was not part of their deal. This was real. "Are you sure?" "I'm positive, unless you have plans to wash your hair." She thought about saying no, about protecting herself and walking away with the memory of one perfect, magical, fake evening. But looking into Liam Sterling's kind, intelligent eyes, she realized she didn't want this to end. "I'd like that very much," she said. "Good," he breathed out, a real smile lighting up his face. "I was hoping you'd say yes." As the last notes of the song faded and the house lights came up, Chloe felt like Cinderella at the stroke of midnight. The magic was supposed to end. She was supposed to go back to being ordinary Chloe, with no job, no date, and a fractured friendship. But maybe, just maybe, this time the magic didn't have to disappear when the music stopped. Maybe this was the beginning of a different kind of story altogether. The next evening, Chloe stood paralyzed before her closet, trapped in a spiral of wardrobe-induced panic. The wedding had been easy. She had one formal dress that fit the bill. But tonight was different. Tonight was real. Liam's text that morning had been simple and maddeningly vague. "Looking forward to tonight. 7 p.m. Dress comfortably." She eventually settled on dark wash jeans, a cashmere sweater the color of autumn leaves, and her favorite leather ankle boots. It felt like her, but a slightly more polished version. The address he'd sent led her not to some sleek, modernist temple of gastronomy, but to a tiny, unmarked Italian restaurant in a quiet neighborhood, nestled between a used bookstore and a laundromat. The windows were steamy, and through the glass, she could see checkered tablecloths and candles flickering in Chianti bottles. It looked warm, authentic, and utterly unpretentious. Liam was already there, tucked into a cozy corner booth. He stood when he saw her, his face breaking into a smile that was so genuinely happy to see her, it made her knees feel weak. He'd also dressed down, wearing dark jeans and a simple gray Henley that made him look more like a rugged architect than a tech mogul. "You found it," he said, sliding out of the booth to let her in. "My GPS is a modern marvel," she replied, slipping onto the worn leather seat. "A friend of mine, a chef, swore this place has the best cacio e pepe in all of Chicago. It's a well-guarded secret." "It's perfect," she said with relief. "I was half expecting a place with a 20-page wine list and waiters who scoff if you can't pronounce the name of the fish." Liam laughed, a rich, genuine sound. "I reserve those places for hostile negotiations. They're terrible for getting to know someone." A friendly waiter with a thick Italian accent took their drink orders, and as they settled in, Chloe felt the last of her nervousness melt away. This didn't feel like a first date. It felt like a continuation of the effortless conversation they'd started at the wedding. "So how was your day?" Liam asked. "Unspectacular. I applied for a few jobs online and reorganized my spice rack. It's now alphabetized." She paused. "How was yours?" "Full of spreadsheets. But I kept getting distracted, thinking about last night." "Good thoughts, I hope." "The best." He grew more serious. "I was also wondering if you'd thought any more about what you want to do next, career-wise." Chloe put down her menu. "Liam, are you about to offer me a job?" "I'm about to offer you an option," he corrected gently. "Last night you mentioned you were a marketing strategist. As it happens, I am in desperate need of a brilliant marketing strategist, and I'm starting to think the universe put one right in front of me at a wedding." "You don't have to do this. I don't need a pity job." "Chloe," he said firmly, his gaze intense. "I am not offering you a job because I feel sorry for you. I'm offering you a potential project because, after talking to you for 3 hours, I'm convinced you're smarter and more perceptive than my last 3 marketing consultants combined, and I paid them a fortune. You barely know me. I know you're observant, you can think on your feet, you know how to read a room, and you're not afraid to call things as you see them." He leaned forward, his voice low. "Those are the qualities I value. The rest can be learned." A fragile hope, laced with a healthy dose of skepticism, bloomed in her chest. "What would the job, the project, entail?" "My company is launching a new software platform in 4 months. It's designed to help nonprofits manage their donor databases and fundraising campaigns. The tech is solid, but our current marketing plan is uninspired. We need someone to scrap it and build a new strategy from the ground up." "That sounds like a massive undertaking." "It is, but it's also a chance to make a real mark. You'd have complete creative freedom, a dedicated team, and a budget that isn't an insult." The waiter returned to take their order. After he left, Chloe looked across the table at the man who was, in the span of 24 hours, turning her entire world upside down. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I have a business problem that needs solving, and I think you're the person to solve it. It's a pragmatic decision." "Is it only pragmatic?" she pressed. Liam was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. "No," he said finally. "It's not. I like you, Chloe. I enjoy talking to you more than I've enjoyed talking to anyone in a very long time. I want an excuse to see you more, and I want to see what someone with your talent can do when they're finally given a real chance to shine." "What if I'm terrible at it?" "What if you're brilliant?" he countered. The question hung in the air between them, a dare she was terrified to accept. "I'd need to know more," she said, her voice regaining its professional edge. "About the company, the product, the team?" "Of course. Come by the office tomorrow, 10 a.m. I'll walk you through everything. You can meet the key players. Ask a million questions. If you decide it's not for you, you walk away. No hard feelings. But I have a feeling you're going to like what you see." Their food arrived, a steaming, fragrant paradise of pasta and fresh bread, and for the next hour, they talked about everything and nothing. Liam told her about his failed first company, a disastrous attempt to create a social media platform for pet owners. "The takeaway," he said with a wry grin, "is that cats are not interested in networking." Chloe told him about her dream of one day opening a small bookstore with a coffee shop inside. "My parents think it's a terrible business model, but I love the idea of creating a community space." "I think it's a brilliant idea," he said seriously. After dinner, he walked her the few blocks to where her car was parked. The autumn air was crisp, and the Chicago streets were alive with the energy of the city. "Thank you for tonight," she said as they stopped by her car, "and for the offer. Even if I don't take it, it meant a lot that you thought of me." "Thank you for not running screaming when I offered you a job on our first date." They stood in a comfortable silence for a moment, the streetlights casting a warm glow around them. This was the moment. The pivot point where the evening could end with a polite handshake or become the start of something more. "Chloe," Liam said softly, "I genuinely hope you take the job. But even if you don't, I hope you'll let me take you to dinner again. A real dinner, no job talk involved." "I think I'd like that," she said, her heart doing a little flutter kick. He stepped a fraction closer, and for a dizzying second, she thought he was going to kiss her. Instead, he reached out and gently brushed a stray strand of hair from her cheek, his fingers warm against her skin. The simple gesture was more intimate than a kiss. "I'll see you in the morning," he said. 10 o'clock. I'll be there." As she drove home through the glittering city, Chloe's mind was a whirlwind. The job, the man, the sheer improbability of it all. It was too much, too fast, too good to be true. But as she parked in front of her apartment, her phone buzzed with a new text message. It was from Liam. "For the record, I was thinking about kissing you all night." A slow smile spread across her face. She typed back, "For the record, I wouldn't have minded." As she got ready for bed, Chloe found herself imagining a different future than the one she'd resigned herself to just 48 hours ago. It was a dangerous game, letting herself hope. But for the first time in a very long time, she felt like the odds might just be in her favor. Tomorrow, she would walk into his office and make a decision that could change the entire trajectory of her life. Tonight, she would let herself believe that sometimes the best stories begin in the most unexpected ways.